If the homeopath you select does not practice proper classical homeopathy, the prescription will fail. There will be no benefits. There may even be some worsening of symptoms temporarily, but the main thing is it won't work. Homeopathy won't work, and you'll see no improvements. And then we think homeopathy doesn't work when really their practitioner was trained incorrectly, and it's not proper homeopathy following proper classical original teachings of homeopathy. Okay, so this is the main problem. So what do you need to look for, and what do you need to run from? This is what I want to show you guys today and kind of explain to you guys when it comes to proper homeopathic treatment of anything really, but we're focusing on autism, developmental delays, and speech delays. Treating your kids with any type of health issue. We see a lot of convulsions, we see a lot of digestive issues, we see a ton, unfortunately, of delays and autism and speech delays and that type of thing. So what do you got to look for? Number one, the first most, and this is what I'm going to teach you guys, is what is based off the original teachings of homeopathy by Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, who discovered homeopathy, who had 50 years of practice and established this science and this art of homeopathy and the proper way to do it and the improper way to do it, okay? What we see today is a lot of homeopaths called modern homeopaths, and sometimes they're advertised as classical homeopaths, but really they practice modern principles of trying to do things extremely quickly, trying to take a case and analyze a case extremely quickly, trying to prescribe multiple medicines at one time because they haven't dedicated the time to find the one medicine that fits that case perfectly, So like I said, it results in no changes at all. You'll see no improvements, or sometimes it even results in a worsening of symptoms or new symptoms developing, which is not ideal, right? So first thing you want to look for, homeopathy is based on one medicine at a time. Single medicine prescribing, not polypharmacy, where we give 2, 3, 4 different medicines on the same day, every day, or repeated throughout the week, okay? We always want to see one medicine that covers the totality of that child's symptom picture and it fits the case. So usually always one medicine will fit the whole case. Sometimes we'll do something that's called an intercurrent medicine. We might take that once a week, once a month, but we use a main medicine, could be every 48 hours, could be every 72 hours, could be every 4 or 5 days, a dose of it. But the main thing you want to watch for is one medicine at a time, okay? What to run from? If you see a homeopath prescribing 2 or 3 different medicines throughout the day, one in the morning, a different one in the afternoon, another one at nighttime, and this is repeated every day, run, okay? It's not classical homeopathy. It's not proper. It's going to lead to other problems we don't want in that case. So remember, single medicine, single dose, one medicine at a time. That's number one. So your first sign to know if it's a classical homeopath or not is if they're giving a lot of medicines all within the same day, or, every other day, alternating medicine, different medicine. One day you take this medicine, the next day you take that medicine. Then the third day you go back to that first medicine and back and forth, okay? It's not classical homeopathy. It won't work. It's probably going to fail and you're not going to see any benefits. And hopefully things don't get temporarily worse, but you might see some aggravation. So that's number one. Number two is you don't want to see a lot of dosing. So if you see a homeopath dosing frequently, there are exceptions to this, okay? But most times homeopathy is a stimulus to trigger a healing response within that child. So it's like spark to gasoline. The remedy is that spark. The child's immune system, which is going to be stimulated very specifically by that chosen remedy, is the gasoline. You don't need to keep giving that stimulus over and over and over and over again, like that spark. Once you get the first spark, that reaction has taken place and the healing process takes place in that child if the medicine's right. So, you want to see, there are exceptions to this, but generally we don't want to give a lot of dosing. So generally we're not dosing every day. Generally we're not dosing, every other day. You might dose every 3 days. You might get a dose every 4 days, sometimes once a week. But the idea is infrequent dosing. So if you see a lot of dosing with the homeopath you're seeing, every day, question and just ask them to explain why they're doing it. They'll explain to you. But especially if it's more than once a day, you have to be very cautious. And I would be very cautious while they're doing it because you might see things get worse, especially with that frequent dosing. Now, like I said, there are exceptions to this rule. So in acute treatment, so if you're dealing with anything that is a short-term illness, flu, cold, tonsillitis, ear infections, bronchitis, respiratory infections, any type of infections like UTIs in kids, anything like this. If you're dealing with an acute short-term thing, the flu, any short acute thing, many times we'll dose frequently because the intensity of the illness is very quick, fast, and intense. So therefore, we need a lot of dosing to subdue that illness. Okay, so you might see dosing, one dose every 2 hours, one dosing every 3 hours, but for a short, the key is for a short period of time. It might be for 1 to 3 days, 1 to 4 days until the child's better, and then it's done. So that's an exception to frequent dosing. But any chronic treatment, when you see frequent dosing, it's usually a problem. Now, the second exception, sometimes with chronic treatment, anything you're treating, delays, epilepsy, any type of developmental delays, any type of digestive issues that have been there for months or years, the second exception is there's a certain strength of medicine in homeopathy called LM1 or Q potencies. These sometimes are meant to be taken daily or every 48 hours. It's a very diluted strength. There's not a very large chance for it to be too much by giving it every day to the child. And a lot of times you'll see benefits, okay? But if it's not an LM potency, LM1, LM2, LM3, or Q potency as sometimes it's called, then it's probably not ideal and you shouldn't be doing it. So those are the two main things I want to talk about. The first thing you're going to see, the first red flag that I hear of all the time when people have seen a homeopath and it failed or the child got worse is different medicines, 3-4 different medicines given throughout the same day or alternating. One day this, one day that, one day this, one day that. It's a huge problem. It's not following classical homeopathic principles. So we see problems and you'll see problems too. So look for this. First of all, it should be classical homeopath and they shouldn't do those two things. The third thing we should talk about is, you'll see this, a homeopath in, again, a non-acute setting. Acute prescriptions sometimes are very quick. You could take a case in 5 or 10 minutes, get all the information you need, find a medicine to prescribe accurately for a cold, a flu, bronchitis, eye infections, ear infections, UTIs, any of these type of things. Sometimes 10 minutes, you can find a remedy with enough information. Chronic cases, long-term things over 3 or 4 months that you've had for over 3 or 4 months. This is any type of infection. This is any type of, obviously, autism, developmental delay, ADHD, ADD, hyperactivity, GDD, any of these things. You need a detailed case of family history. You need a detailed case of case history from birth from the child's birth up until their current age. Current symptom picture, everything they're dealing with right now that your main complaint is about, and also pregnancy. So it's kind of broken down into 4 parts, and you need a good 1.5 to 2 hours to get all that information, very detailed. If you don't get it, it's a problem. You won't be able to prescribe accurately because you won't get all the key information you need to find the remedy that's going to fix them. So just remember this. If you see a homeopath take a chronic case, acute case is an exception, a chronic case of anything with your child, if they're doing it in 30 minutes, it's impossible. It doesn't matter how good they are. Most likely, it's not going to be the right remedy. They haven't taken a detailed case. And the problem is, again, we go back to modern homeopathy where we want quick, fast cases. So they try to speed things up. But then when they do that, they lose the precision of taking that case. They lose the details of that case because they're trying to do it so quickly to fit a lot of patients in. So that's another problem that you're going to see. So you really have to watch for that, okay? The last thing I want to talk about, this will be the fourth thing, is when they prescribe a medicine for a condition without taking the case at all. This goes back to probably part 3 where, they're taking the case extremely quickly, 5 or 10 minutes, and they're prescribing on that. It's impossible to find the remedy for a chronic case. It's almost impossible. So you'll see chronic case taking for a long-term thing, like I said, and you'll see them prescribe, well, okay, a child has autism. Okay, well then this is the remedy they need. And that's it. There's almost no information they take. Or the child has a cold. Okay, this is the remedy they need. Or the child has speech delays. Okay, this is the remedy they need. It's going to be wrong almost 100% of the time. Okay, I want you to understand why. Because in homeopathy, there is not a medicine for a disease condition, an illness, or a syndrome. It doesn't exist. So it's not like this remedy is for this condition. This remedy is for this diagnosis. It does not work like this. There could be, I'll give you an example. There could be 10 remedies for autism. There's a lot more, but there could be 10 remedies that will all help with the symptoms of autism, but every child may benefit from a different remedy because of a little difference in that case. An example would be a child who's extremely extroverted and social and a child who's extremely shy, timid, and hides behind their parents whenever they see a stranger. Everything else could be exactly the same. They could have speech delays, they could be hyperactive, they could have constipation, they could have comprehension issues, but that little difference will be two different medicines in homeopathy that treat the same condition, okay? So this is the same for anything in homeopathy. If you see a little difference in that case, it needs a different medicine. So it's impossible to say this remedy is for a cold, this remedy is for a headache, this remedy is for autism. If you don't get the details about that headache, if you don't get the details about the way that child experiences autism, you will never find the remedy. So this is another thing with modern homeopathy where they prescribe quickly without even talking to you for an hour and a half to get all the details, the pregnancy, the family history, the case history, the current symptom picture, those four things that you need to get a whole picture. Again, they won't get it and it won't work and the remedy will be wrong. And then homeopathy doesn't work, but really it does work. It's just the practitioner is not following classical homeopathy, the classical principles of homeopathy. So that's it. I think that covers it all. 4 things. Watch for those things. If you see some of those things, run away, find another classical homeopath because it's not right. It's not going to work. You're wasting your money most times. So anyways, God bless you guys. I hope this is helpful. I get so many questions from people about this. How do we know what homeopath to see? So this is what you do, okay? Any questions, give me a call. God bless you guys.